seroprevalence, so it may not solve the problem that governments are trying to solve. And then thirdly, there are serious ethical issues around the use of such an approach, and we need to address it very carefully. We also need to look at the length of protection that antibodies might give. Nobody is sure whether someone with antibodies is fully protected against having the disease or being exposed again. Plus, some of the tests have issues of sensitivity. They may give a false negative result, and we may actually have someone who believes they're seropositive and protected actually in a situation where they may be exposed and in fact they are susceptible to the disease. Now, it's not that these tests cannot be used, but there's a lot of work to do to standardize those tests, to ensure that they're validated, to ensure that they're used as part of a coherent policy, and that there's a very clear public health objective to their use, and that they are not misused in any way. So we will look at what Chile is doing or proposing to do. We will look at what all countries are proposing to do, and we will offer the best advice we can based on science and ethics to them. Maria?
To supplement, yes, this is an ongoing issue, and we will be issuing some guidance over the weekend on this because there are a lot of countries that are suggesting to use rapid serologic tests to be able to capture what they think will be a measure of immunity. And as Mike has said, right now we have no evidence that the use of a serologic test can show that an individual is immune or is protected from reinfection. What the use of these tests will do will measure the level of antibodies, and it's a response that the body has a week or two later after they've been infected with this virus. And these antibody tests will be able to measure that level of seroprevalence, that level of antibodies. But that does not mean that somebody with antibodies means that they're immune. And so we will be issuing some guidance around this because it is a confusing area. There's a lot of tests right now that have flooded the market, and that's a good thing. It's a good thing that these things are being developed and that they are available, but we need to ensure that they are validated, and so that we know what they say that they attempt to measure, they are actually measuring. So we hope to put some guidance out over the weekend, and that guidance will be updated as more information becomes available.
Swiss authorities have unveiled their plans to slowly ease the measures from their lockdown. Joining us live from Zurich, Switzerland, is Eberhard Ordinario. Hello, Ebby.
Hi, Alma. Good evening there.
Yes, good afternoon over there. What are your updates for us?
Hi, so the updates today, we have 27,404 confirmed cases that were reported today. 1,111 deaths reported today. And in a press conference on April 16, the Federal Council has announced to commence with the gradual ease of measures. The gradual ease will be done in 3 phases. First phase will be on April 27, with businesses with low level of direct contact, where precautionary measures can easily be implemented and no significant movements of people are involved. Businesses offering personal services involving physical contact may also reopen. These include hair salons, massage practices, cosmetic studios that are allowed to reopen. Also, garden centers and florists are also allowed to open. Now, measures regarding inpatient medical sector will also be eased, meaning that hospitals will be able to resume all medical procedures, including non-urgent procedures like dental, physiotherapy, and medical massage practices. Restrictions on the range of products at grocery stores will also be lifted. Shops that have goods other than essential everyday items may resume selling these too. Now, in phase 2, which will commence on May 11, it is planned that schools for children of compulsory age, shops, and markets will be reopened. The Federal Council will decide on whether to proceed with this phase on April 29. In phase 3, which is planned for June 8, upper secondary schools, vocational schools, and higher educational institutions will be allowed face-to-face teaching. At the same time, entertainment and leisure establishments such as museums, zoos, library may open, and the restrictions on gatherings may be relaxed. Currently, not more than 5 people are allowed to gather. The decision for this phase will be decided upon on May 27. As of now, there's no mention of further phases and as to when large-scale events will be allowed again. But before moving from one phase to another, several conditions must be met. All businesses must assure the protection of the public and of the staff. There must be no significant increase of COVID-19 cases, and there must be sufficient time between two phases to observe the effects. The criteria that will be observed are the new numbers of infections, hospital admissions, deaths, and also hospital occupancy rates. The concept of the exit strategy by the Federal Council are to protect the public health and to limit the economic impact. So much from here. Back to you, Alma.
Which helps companies keep their employees instead of firing them, yeah?
Yes, that too.
Yeah. So it's still, how is that going along? It's still...
Yeah, there are a lot of people who have filed for this short-time work, 1.3 million, which is almost 25% of the whole working force in Switzerland. They have all applied for short-term work, and the companies really want to keep their employees. So
Yeah,
we're hoping also that this will soon be over, so that the impact of it will not be too great.
let me ask you about, tell me a little bit about your family. How are you dealing, coping with this situation?
Me and my family, we're doing fine. I have 2 kids, 2 boys with me, and we're trying to toughen it out till at least maybe 1, 2 or more weeks. My kids are always waiting for me while I'm doing home office that I finish my work, and so that we can go out and do our quarantine walk, and so that they can at least breathe some fresh air outside.
So it's okay to go out and take a walk?
Yes, here in where we live is a smaller town, so we're not directly in the city. So here there's a lot of nature, so it's not too crowded here, and it's okay for us to walk and observe the social distancing between the people that are also walking here.
You have a family, you have kids. How do you talk to your kids about this unusual situation?
Yeah, we try to explain to him that there are many people right now who are sick, and for us also not to be sick, we have to stay at home, even if it means for them that they cannot play outside at the moment. But my sons are understanding, and we just try to cope by doing more things together, trying out new stuff, playing together, teaching new things. And actually, with our church, they've launched everyday activities where my sons can actually join and also have fun.
Okay, what are these activities? Is this online?
Yes, the activities that are being hosted are online. So we would gather through WebEx, and my sons will be able to watch together with all the other kids here in our local congregation, or actually in our whole district.
Yes.
And the activities include drawing, like time to draw. They learn how to draw, or they learn to do activities like sports, exercises.
Great.
Everything through a web book.
What do you plan to do after this? After all this is finished, what do you plan to do?
Yeah, of course, go back out again, visit. I mean, actually, see all the friends and relatives here first, to check on them, see if they're okay, and hopefully, if everything everywhere else is okay, to at least a smaller travel to somewhere close, not too far.
All right, thank you so much, Evie, for your time, always. Thank you for your updates, and keep them coming, keep safe, and stay healthy.
Thank you. From Zurich, Switzerland, I'm Ebi Ordinario. We live in interesting times.
Indeed. All right, let's go to the World Bank. The president, David Malpass, addressed the global news media during the World Bank Group International Monetary Fund's 2020 spring meetings, which are this year being held in a virtual format due to the ongoing pandemic. Mr. Malpass warned that the World Bank's calculations suggest a much deeper downturn than the Great Recession. Let's listen in.
Our program is based around three pillars: protecting the poorest, supporting jobs and saving jobs. IFC and MEGA are very engaged in that effort, and also helping developing countries implement emergency health operations in order to strengthen economic resilience going forward. I was pleased earlier this week that the G20 took up our joint call to provide a suspension in debt services to bilateral creditors during the crisis. Kristalina and I worked hard on this and supported it, and are very happy to see it done. It's a powerful, fast-acting initiative that can bring real benefits to the poor. As the pandemic unfolds, disruptions in domestic food supply chains are emerging as a pressing issue in many countries. Many of you are aware. You're all aware of the locust crisis in East Africa, which is also hitting the food supply, and we've been working on labor shortages are becoming an issue affecting trade and logistics. The loss of income and jobs is reducing people's ability to even afford or buy food, and so we have a double problem of both the supply and the demand sides being disrupted in such a critical area as food and agricultural supply chains. Our estimates suggest a much deeper downturn than the Great Recession, and we are responding forcefully and massively. In response to COVID-19, the World Bank Group has focused on taking fast, broad-based action. That's what I wanted us to achieve. It's resulted in new health emergency programs in over 100 countries by the end of April. We have 64 in operation today, and we'll have more by the end of April, going over 100, I hope. The World Bank Group will work to deploy as much as $160 billion over the next 15 months. It's tailored to the nature of the health, economic, and social shocks that countries are facing.
To the U.S. now, Texas Governor Greg Abbott announced that he will implement a three-phase plan to reopen his state amid the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. Within the next week, he will relax restrictions on hospitals' ability to perform elective surgeries, encourage shops to let customers order goods, and then pick up from outside, and open state parks. Take a look.
First will be openings announced today that include activities that should pose minimal or no threat to expanding COVID-19. Second, additional openings will be announced on April the 27th after further input from the advisors and the medical staff. Third, even more openings will be announced in May when it is determined that the infection rate continues to decline, that hospital capacity remains available, and when testing capacities are sufficient to detect and contain outbreaks of COVID-19. The first executive order today establishes the governor's strike force to open Texas.
Texas announced plans on Friday to relax restrictions within the next week on hospitals' ability to perform elective surgeries, encourage shops to let customers order goods, and then pick up from outside, and open state parks. The Republican governor also said he will announce plans for opening the first wave of Texas businesses on April 27, depending on whether the state has been able to contain the coronavirus, but schools will be closed for the remainder of the school year. And here are some heartwarming images of the moment Yanira Soriano, who gave birth while in a medically induced coma, meets her baby boy for the first time since giving birth in early April. Take a look.
It takes many people over many shifts to provide the level of care that this patient needed. And as you know, many patients that end up on a ventilator with a COVID pneumonia do not survive. And the fact that this mom not only survived, but was able to get out of her wheelchair and walk into her car and hold her baby gives us all incredible hope for future patients and our existing patients.
Meanwhile, New Yorkers are singing Frank Sinatra's New York, New York as an ode to the city's essential workers amid the pandemic. Take a look. Okay, WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus and Lady Gaga, together with Hugh Evans from Global Citizen, announced that many of the world's leading musicians, comedians, and even humanitarians will participate in the One World Together at Home virtual global special. One World Together at Home will take place on April 18. It will include the participation of Elton John, Adam Lambert, Alicia Keys, Annie Lennox, Billie Eilish, and many others. Take a look.
Leader. Joy and hope into the homes of people.
Tomorrow, WHO is joining forces with many of the world's leading musicians, comedians, and humanitarians for the One World Together at Home virtual global special. This is the result of a close collaboration with my good friend Hugh Evans from Global Citizens and the inspirational Lady Gaga to bring entertainment, joy, and hope to
leaders, other nonprofits, artists of many mediums, and people of all nations have combined forces to write a love letter to the world. We call it One World Together at Home. It is a love letter to our doctors, a love letter to our nurses and other healthcare professionals who are risking their own lives for the sake of ours. To the delivery drivers, grocery store workers, factory workers, public transportation workers, postal workers, and restaurant workers doing the same. We celebrate your bravery and your heroism.
The money raised tomorrow night will go to support both local charities and also efforts to provide PPE to community health workers around the world. Face masks, protective equipment, gowns, goggles, the things that they deserve. Our healthcare workers deserve our support. And we know that if we all do our part, we can weather this storm.
Eagle News will be right back.
This program is co-presented by Kubert Industries Incorporated, Electromechanical Trading and Services, The Cooling Expert, Vita Herbs Philippines Green Coffee, Masarap, Mabango at Healthy Pa. Canwood Corporation, your ventilation and air conditioning specialist. In participation with Rain or Shine Elastomeric Waterproofing Paint, color for protection for your home. Matimco. Matimco is wood. Wood is Matimco. Our Square Variables Incorporated, your trusted UPS supplier and UPS maintenance provider in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. CompuZell Computer Services, ID card and lanyard manufacturer. DN Steel. EMAC, UPVC Roof Corporation.
Okay, let's go over to the United Kingdom. The government there has announced a new vaccine task force to help the development of a vaccine for COVID-19 and ensure its rapid production and rollout if one arrives. We have that update from our EBC correspondent in the UK, Annabelle Reynolds. Hello, Annabelle.
Hello, Alma.
How are you doing?
I'm good. You?
I'm good. Okay, so what are your updates for us, Annabelle?
So far, the government announced it has launched vaccines task force as part of its response to the COVID-19 pandemic. But the business secretary, Alok Harma, warns the production of a vaccine is a colossal undertaking and there is no guarantees.
One of the ways that we can defeat this virus is to find a vaccine. Just as Edward Jenner developed the smallpox vaccine in the 18th century, we need to apply the best of British scientific endeavour to the search for the coronavirus vaccine. To that end, I can announce today that the government has set up a vaccines task force to coordinate the efforts of government, academia and industry towards a single goal. With all their efforts, we should be under no illusions. Producing a vaccine is a colossal undertaking, a complex process which will take many months. There are no guarantees, but the government is backing our scientists, betting big to maximise the chance of success.
So the numbers are not only at a plateau, but beginning to come down in some areas, and that will translate into fewer people in intensive care in due course. But do not expect this to be quick. This is not going to be a sudden drop. There will be a plateau. It will take a while for the numbers to come right down. And that's why it's important that we continue with the strong social distancing measures that we have in place and continue to do so.
Yes, Annabelle.
Sharma said 21 new research projects focusing on the virus will receive government backing from £14 million, $18 million and €16 million investment fund to develop treatments and vaccines as soon as possible. Sharma's announcement at the Daily Downing Street press briefing focused mainly on the idea of the vaccines task force, combining government and industry, which would both coordinate research efforts to develop a new vaccine and then seek to ensure it could be provided to people as soon as possible. Work is taking place in numerous countries, with some human trials already starting. Patrick of Levant's chief scientific advisor has maintained that a year to 18 months is a reasonable timeframe for a vaccine to be widely available. Meanwhile, Britain's death toll from the coronavirus rose by 847 on Friday. Health Ministry figures show a slightly lower increase than the previous day, but still among the worst rates globally. The risk takes the total number of deaths in the UK hospitals from COVID-19 to 14,576, leaving Britain behind only the United States, Italy, Spain, and France. As the coronavirus in the world deaths pass 500,000, more than 4.5 billion people, and under the containment to slow the pandemic. Back to you, Alma.
Right, Annabelle, let me ask you, how are you doing? How are you and your family coping with this unusual situation?
So far, Alma, everything's going great. We're just keeping positive. Obviously, we have new routines that we have to do whilst this lockdown is happening. So I'm just doing my normal university coursework and cleaning the house, looking after my younger siblings, and learning new skills like how to cook, because my mom is a great chef, as well as my dad.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool.
And also, yeah, and also keeping up with the latest news and following the instructions from the government.
All right. And your siblings, how do you talk to them about this situation? How are you helping your parents do this?
First of all, I look at the news and try to break down the words and make it more simple for them to understand what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And how do you keep yourselves positive or optimistic during this pandemic?
Just keeping positive and always do something useful and avoiding things that will get affected from this virus.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay, thank you so much. And thank you for your time. Keep safe, stay healthy always.
You too, Alma. I'm Annabelle Reynolds, your ABC correspondent in the UK, and we live in interesting times. Back to you, Alma.
Thank you. All right. Meantime, the World Health Organization said that the continent saw a 51% increase in known cases and a 60% increase in deaths over the past week. However, the WHO noted that the real numbers are likely much higher than what has been reported due to a shortage in testing. Take a look.
Lockdown, shutdowns, that needs to be done, but it needs to have in place three very important things. One, a completely empowered, educated community, capable individuals who are aware of the physical distancing, the personal hygiene measures that are needed to avoid infection, communities aware and involved in the process and fully empowered to act and participate, a strong and acceleration and strengthening of the public health capacities for finding cases, for testing, for isolation, and for quarantining of contacts. And this is exceptionally important. And our colleague Tom Frieden in the US has likened this to, we need to start boxing the virus in, not boxing people in. And I think it's a good analogy. We need to start finding the virus, because right now, with the current situation, everybody is locked down in order to stop the virus spreading. The only way we get to shift away from that is finding the virus and then limiting the measures as best we can to those individuals who may have the potential to spread it or may have the potential to develop the disease. And the last part of that is having a strong enough health system, that the health system has recovered enough and has enough capacity built in that it can react. And you're seeing many countries are starting to bring online measured transition. Nobody is removing themselves from a lockdown type situation in a dramatic way. You'll see countries are phasing the response, and they're trying to look at the measurements they're going to use. And what we do appreciate.
Japan will offer a cash stimulus payment of 100,000 yen to every resident, according to Prime Minister Abe Shinzo, as measures to contain the coronavirus decimate the world's third largest economy.
全国すべての国民の皆様を対象に一律に1人当たり10万円の給付を行うことを決断いたしました。一日も早く現金を皆さんのお手元に届けられるように実施にあたる自治体や関係機関の方々と協力し、政府を挙げて全力で取り組んでまいります。私たち全員が今、不要不急の外出を避けることで、2週間後の新規の感染者数を劇的に減らすことができます。未来は私たちの今の行動にかかっています。昨日、緊急事態宣言の区域を7都府県にとどまることなく、日本全国へと拡大することといたしました。
An initial plan to provide 3 times that amount to households which have seen income slashed because of the coronavirus was ditched, and Prime Minister Abe Shinzo apologized for the confusion. Japan has seen relatively few cases and deaths compared to hotspots in Europe and the U.S., but a recent spike in Tokyo, which logged a daily record of 201 new cases on Friday, has sparked concern. The Prime Minister initially declared a state of emergency in 7 regions of the country, but expanded this on Thursday to include the entire country. He said this decision was taken in a bid to restrict domestic travel during the Golden Week holidays in late April and early May, when many Japanese leave cities to visit family elsewhere. The state of emergency hands regional governors the power to demand people stay indoors, but stops far short of restrictions seen elsewhere, as there is no punishment for transgression. And meanwhile, France on Friday reported 761 more deaths from COVID-19 in hospitals and nursing homes over the last 24 hours, but welcomed new falls in the total numbers of coronavirus patients. The new deaths, top health official Jerome Salomon told reporters, 418 in hospitals and 243 in nursing homes, brought the total toll in the country from the epidemic to 18,681. But in a more positive news, the total numbers in hospital fell for the 3rd day in a row, with 115 fewer patients, and the numbers in intensive care fell for the 9th consecutive day, with 221 fewer patients. The country's month-long lockdown is starting to bear fruit, according to Solomon, while urging, quote, "We have to continue our efforts in confinement." He described the fall in intensive care and hospital numbers as slow but constant, and said France was seeing now a slowing in the spread of the epidemic. He also said spread had been mitigated very well by all the French through respecting the confinement orders and social distance recommendations while outside. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump announced a $19 billion financial rescue package to help the agriculture industry weather the staggering economic downturn sparked by measures to defeat the coronavirus.
The Department of Agriculture will be implementing a $19 billion relief program for our great farmers and ranchers as they cope with the fallout of the global pandemic.
The co-ops or the middlemen make the money, and the guys that are making the product have to take their price, or you're dumping milk. They have got no way to protect it when things go bad. I mean, you think they would have something in mind to handle this overflow, but it's easier just to let the farmer dump it and let them eat it.
First of all, we're going to need to have the federal government's going to have to provide some kind of a backdrop emergency funding to help those farmers that dump their milk. I just think one of the biggest messages is you've got to treat people right. You got to take care of people in a time of need. If you don't rise up and do that, everything else goes out the window. Greed cannot be entered in this situation. And what's painful is knowing that everybody that's working so hard on the farms, I don't want them to be taken advantage of.
Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue said U.S. farmers have been hit hard by a sharp shift in demand as schools and restaurants close and more Americans eat at home. Now, that has disrupted the food supply chain, forcing farmers in many places to destroy dairy output and plow under crops that no longer have buyers. Millions of Americans have recently turned to food pantries for meals and groceries after losing their jobs. The U.S. farm and food industry has been hit in numerous ways by the coronavirus epidemic. Farmers are having trouble finding seasonal laborers to prepare and harvest crops, and some meat packing plants have been hit hard by COVID-19 outbreaks. But the change in the way consumers eat has had really a huge impact. The American Farm Bureau said recently that shuttered schools, universities, restaurants, bars, and cafeterias are no longer buying milk, meat, fruits, vegetables, and other food, causing a downward spiral in crop and livestock prices. The coronavirus may have arrived late in Africa, but it is slowly taking hold with over 15,000 cases and 800 deaths across the continent. Now, for the most vulnerable, it's a choice between food or risking infection, be it in South Africa's townships during a harsh lockdown or Kenya's slums where brave infection to earn a living.
coronavirus may have arrived late in Africa, but it is slowly taking hold with over 15,000 cases and 800 deaths across the continent. For the most vulnerable, it's a choice between food or risking infection, be it South Africa's township residents who face hunger during severe lockdown, or those living in Kenyan slums risking contracting the disease in order to make money. Residents clashed with police in Cape Town's Mitchell's Plain township as people demand state food parcels. Police fired rubber bullets to disperse protesters who threw rocks as South Africa continues with a hard lockdown. The country has more than 2,500 confirmed infections, the highest number in Africa. There are fears the virus could spread rapidly in its many informal settlements.
This is not animals, this is hungry people. These people are looking just for food. Please, I don't think Ramaphosa is doing something. Why not? Then we can rather die of coronavirus than to die in our homes of hunger.
Rays of Hope, an organisation that works in townships in Johannesburg, has distributed much-needed food to people, many of whom are informal workers currently unable to earn a living.
A big challenge. I was staying at home with the kids, you know, no money, no food, you know how the kids are like. Every day in the morning, mommy, food, everything, you know.
Meanwhile, authorities have launched a massive testing campaign. Health workers go door to door in townships like Diepsloot in the north of Johannesburg.
This is very important because if you don't test, you don't know if you've got. And then on top of that, you're going to give for the other people. Those other people are also going to give it to the other people. Then all over the place is going to be corona. We're all going to die about it. So it's safe to taste.
Similarly, health workers in Nigeria have been deployed to satellite towns, villages and suburbs around the capital, Abuja. They're carrying out tests and increasing awareness of the virus.
At least it will give me boldness to say that there's nothing wrong with me and to be more careful how I stay close to people or the people I allow coming around me. So that is why I'm here.
The pandemic will plunge the global economy into a recession this year. The G20 has temporarily suspended debt repayments of the world's poorest nations, which will come as a relief to African governments who owe $365 billion. A Congolese activist has praised the debt relief, but now asks how leaders will use the money they're saving.
If these funds are well used, on that condition alone, the people will be able to feel the effects of such a decision.
Wearing masks has become obligatory in some African nations, such as Cameroon, where textile workshops are now solely producing washable and reusable masks. Vendors selling the masks roam the streets of Douala, but not everyone is following the rules. Some people refuse to wear the masks, while others feel they're too expensive.
These masks should not be for sale. They should be shared with all Cameroonians, rich or poor, in every corner of Cameroon, because given the current crisis, not everyone has the money to pay for masks.
Kenya's poorest residents are facing a desperate choice between hunger and infection. The current nighttime curfew allows people to work in the day, meaning dense crowds pack the streets of Kibera, Kenya's largest slum, where people live from hand to mouth. Social distancing measures meant that Easter celebrations around the world were largely put on hold. Most of the Catholic Church's 1.3 billion faithful were in forced confinement, but in Burundi, churches were filled with parishioners.
He is stronger and more powerful than the coronavirus. That is why we celebrate the one who has the power and strength to heal even those who are sick.
Burundi has played down the dangers of the pandemic, and its football season is also still in full swing. On Saturday, fans gathered to watch 2 matches in the President's Cup at Bujumbura's Intwari Stadium. Life is normal, while the coronavirus pandemic in Africa gathers speed.
Eagle News will be right back.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
The Philippine Consulate in Spain revealed their aid for Filipinos during this pandemic. Our EBC correspondent, Lynn Tumbaga-Diaz, reports.
Representatives of the local government unit of Spain, Philippine Consulate General of Barcelona, and the Filipino communities held a meeting to meet the needs of the citizens, especially the Filipinos living in Spain. The aids mentioned by the local government unit or ayuntamiento are as follows. Number 1, payment of rents of tenants in public apartments or houses are suspended until August 2020. After the state of the alarm, the unpaid rent will be divided into rents within 2 years. Number 2, rent to the private apartment or housing company if they are having trouble in paying because of unemployment due to the COVID-19 crisis. They can ask for rent assistance and call contact number 010. Electricity, water, and telephone companies cannot terminate the services even though customers cannot pay because a person has the right to the services mentioned due to vulnerability caused by COVID-19 crisis. Number 4, the social services are giving priority to the following: children, elderly, disabled, and people in vulnerable situations. Only those who are single in life but need help can go to Comedor Sociales. Number 5, undocumented Filipinos need not to worry because they also have access to medical services and cannot be arrested as long as they follow the law under the state of the alarm. Number 6, the Ayuntamiento of Spain provide assistance in translating Spanish documents for those who do not understand Spanish. Number 7, if police arrested a person due to lockdown and doubtful on arrest basis, may ask for assistance in Ayuntamiento because they have anti-discrimination program. Documents such as the NIE, DNI, and passports that need renewal can wait until the state of the alarm goes off and should not be alarmed because the work in foreign service is temporarily suspended. Number 9, the unemployed and delayed financial help from ERTE due to the large number of applicants and high volume of transactions but need urgent assistance must contact social services. Number 10, Dr. Ana Romagosa, Director of Centro Atención Primary, o CAP-RABAL, NORD, said the COVID-19 tests are given to people who are in critical condition and can be taken to the hospital or residency. This protocol is subject to change. Those who need medical attention can call CAP or check the Katsalut webpage. Number 11, children with doctor appointments and vaccination schedule are advised to call their doctors first to determine if they need to go to the hospital or if they can wait until the first week of September for vaccinations to be given to children in schools.
Mental health is becoming a major issue in Canada as people deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. Thomas I. Likeness reports.
One of the biggest challenges Canadians face during the pandemic is preserving their mental health and wellness. The isolation brought about by the lockdown has taken a toll on many people. They're alone. They don't know how to cope. Social connections are gone, at least for the time being, and life is different. It's uncertain, and people have trouble handling uncertainty. In an effort to help, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says the Canadian government has set up a new resource dedicated to mental wellness.
If you're feeling overwhelmed, know that you aren't alone, and there are people who can help. We have launched a mental health portal at canada.ca and through the Canada COVID-19 app, where you can go to find support. So if you need to, please reach out. We'll be there for each other.
Now, this website will connect Canadians to peer support workers, social workers, psychologists, and other professionals. They can have confidential chat sessions or phone calls. It will make it easier to find credible information and help address mental health and substance use issues. A special resource has also been set up for children. The Kids Help Phone provides young people with the mental health support that they need during this difficult time, because of school closures and reduced access to community resources. Minor sports also have been shut down, and that's a loss for many kids because it not only gave them an activity to participate in, it also formed their social network. Now, my province of Alberta has also made mental health a priority. Premier Jason Kenney today announced $53 million has been earmarked to improve access to telephone and online supports. And this will be things like the mental health helpline and the Kids Help Phone as well. The province kicks money into that. In addition, money will go towards those disproportionately affected by the pandemic. This would include people like seniors or Indigenous communities. A government survey has found that 3/4 of Albertans who were asked felt their mental health has been affected by the pandemic. This is sad because 1/3 of respondents say they feel depressed or hopeless at least once a week. I hope you're not letting things get you down. I wish you all good health. Take care of others and take care of yourselves. Stay home, stay safe, and stay tuned to Eagle News for accurate and balanced coverage of the COVID-19 pandemic. In Edmonton, Canada, Thomas I. Likeness, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Are you wondering how to talk to your children about the COVID-19 pandemic? Talking to them about this needs expertise, and it needs love and warmth from parents and all that. Our EBC correspondent, we may see from our Malaysia Bureau, will tell us how.
Most children must have already heard about the COVID-19 virus and how it is affecting their daily lives. Not only it limits their freedom to move around, but in their young minds, they started to craft a colorful meaning of what it is about and how it is impacting them. In a country like Malaysia, parents are faced with many challenges in trying to keep their children occupied and feeling safe in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic. While it is important to educate children and give them guidance on how to react to stressful situations like now, little did we know that behind those cheeky smiles is the awareness on what is really going on in their surroundings.
Coronavirus is a type of virus that spreads all around the world. The virus makes people sick, have colds, cough, and high fever. Coronavirus is like the virus infects people. It makes you sick.
Yeah. The virus that looks like a crown.
Coronavirus means it's a virus that's new and causes sickness, so that I will not get sick and stop spreading coronavirus. Because the virus is everywhere infecting people. Because it's closed.
It's closed? Which one is closed?
Because coronavirus is easily passed to other people without you knowing. We are not allowed to go out during MCO or lockdown because we can avoid the virus.
With school currently being closed, keeping children occupied while at home becomes the top priority of parents. While some parents may feel stressed out, children are happy to be with their moms and dad, enjoying some quality time together.
Love to play Scrabble and chess.
Hang the wet clothes.
we like to do with our parents at home are we like to watch movies together, eat together, and do the house chores all together. And exercise together.
We love to watch movies and play at home with my parents, and we also love to
I like to play snooker and chess with Daddy, and then we're also with Mommy, and also watching movies with all of them. I feel sad because I miss my friends and teachers. Sad because I miss my parents and then my friends.
Do you miss your teachers and friends? Oh, if you miss them, are you still happy or are you gonna be sad? Must be nice.
We are sad.
I miss them.
It is sad because we don't have the chance to play, but this lockdown is for the benefit of all of us.
I feel sad because I miss time with them.
COVID-19 pandemic brings feelings of anxiety, stress, and uncertainty to all children. School closure, cancellation of sport matches, school concerts, and other activities that we're excited about, and even separation from friends, all this create mix of different emotion among kids. Most couldn't wait until this pandemic is over, because they too have a long list of plans on their minds.
Play at the playground and swimming. I go to church and pray and play with my friends. I go back to school and show my teacher my mathematics grade and then get A, then pass.
Hang out with my friends.
Play football. I want to do is go on a hotel and celebrate my birthday.
I want to spend more time with my friends and eat more at restaurants.
Our plan is to go to the place of worship to pray to our Almighty God for making our families safe and keeping us away from the virus.
The COVID-19 pandemic is not yet over. Children during these difficult times will continue to rely on their parents to provide a sense of safety and security. None of this is easy, but it helps parents to stay focused and to think that the situation will get better. Reporting from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, this is Macy. We live in interesting times.
And may we leave you with a word of hope. Together we are strong, together we can persevere. Getting through this will take everyone working together. Let's do our part. And that's the news for tonight. Join us online here again on Monday. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.
Several people have been confirmed dead following the spread of a new strain of coronavirus, which was first identified in Wuhan, central China.
Mga kababayan ko, do not panic.